All righty, good evening, everyone. We are live. I hope you have an awesome day today. If not, hey, it's about to be evening, and as long as we sleep, it's every new day begins. Okay, so that's all right. I hope everyone is doing good. Please comment here. I have a high five. I don't know what that symbol mean there, Norma, but hey, two hands up. So we give it high five. One for you, one for Frank. Thank you. Thelma is saying good evening. Barbara says hello. If you are on tonight, please go ahead and introduce yourself. Let us know that you are here. We have a new guest tonight, so we want you to show some love for our guest tonight. I would like to acknowledge you, give you a shout out. I have Donna on, Raul is on, Ernest is on, Patty is on, Martha is on, Norman Frank already greeted us there. Dr. BS is on, Sister Baca is on here. Loida is on. Edith, look like you are on here as well. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. Raul says hello. Greetings to you, Raul. Edith again is saying good evening. Thank you all for your wonderful comments. Keep it coming. Keep it coming. And the reason we want you to kind of get used to chatting with us is because, again, we're going to have a Q&A at the end of the presentation. So if you are on your mobile device, right below this video is the chat section. So please go ahead and leave any comments there. Welcome Dr. Baca for tonight. He's our speaker for tonight. And also, what I would like you to do, if you want to just give a shout out where you're watching from, so Doc knows some of his audience and the reach. We know some of you already. So we have Austin in the house. San Antonio is also in the house. And most of us are here locally as well. Edinburgh is in the house. Barbara is from Mission already. So let us know where you are watching from so we can acknowledge you and your city. The way it works, a few more housekeeping. If by chance the connection seems to be slow, we can't control technology always. So here's what I want you to do. Right above your video, okay, if you're on your mobile device, there's a button that says reconnect. Go ahead and click that. If you're on your computer or laptop or anything along those lines, on the top right, at least on my computer, or on the top left on your computer, there is a little circle that says refresh. Just refresh, and you should have the presentation right back on. Thelma is watching us from McAllen. Good night, Thelma. We have Canada in the house, Dr. Baca. We have Loida watching from Toronto, Canada. Already. She says Dr. Baca is a good speaker. Hallelujah. Are we happy for that tonight? Awesome, awesome. Okay. So we're about to switch over. I'll officially introduce Dr. Baca shortly, and then he will get right into the presentation. Martha says good evening from Austin. So Doc, you're being greeted not only from Texas, but you have folks outside as well saying hello to you. So he's waving to you, everybody. And we appreciate each and every one of our physicians for taking time out from their busy schedule. So I'm going to switch over to our slides and do some quick introduction here. Okay, so let's start off officially. Welcome to our Secrets of Mental and Emotional Wellness. This is a 5-week workshop that we've been putting together, and we've been doing 2 presentations a week, Mondays and Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. Central. This is presentation number 6. So we have indeed officially crossed the halfway mark, and so we only have 4 more presentations to go, including tonight. So I am so grateful that many of you have been with us from day number 1. And so really, I appreciate that. I know you have many things to do, but you've taken your time out to learn not only how to get well, but how to also stay well, and also secrets that we can learn from a scientific academic backdrop so we can educate others and help others as well. Of course, the presentation primarily is for nursing and nurse practitioners, but we are all benefiting from it as well. So I want to thank each and every one of you for being here tonight. Who am I? I'm your host. My name is Chance, U.S. Navy veteran, author, and also minister. And so I collaborate with professionals from different aspects to be able to bring transformational resources, transformational experiences to men and women so that they can up-level their life, not only spiritually, but physically, in their career, in their relationships, in their finances, and in their health. And so we do that every single Thursday. But we added Monday evening as well, because we are benefiting, as we say, some of our students from the University of Southern Indiana, who are in the nursing program and the nurse practitioners program. So they are able to watch some of these presentations and be able to help complete their program. They were in the middle of their, well, almost at the end of one of their courses, week number 11. So they needed 5 more weeks. And so this is why we are putting together these workshops. But we open it to anyone absolutely who would like to participate in it. Now, for the benefit of our students, we only have a limited 24-hour replay. Originally, we were not planning on replays because we want folks to be here live, but for the benefit of the student, in case they need to go back and check something out, they're able to do that. So you will be automatically emailed if you have registered. Some of you might have gotten the link from someone. So if by chance, please, at the end, we encourage you to go to strategicsecrets.com/weekly webinar and just go ahead and sign up there. And once you register, you will be automatically notified even for the next presentation, which is on Thursday. Okay, let's see who else made any comments here. Luther Charles says that he is here. Good evening to you, Mr. Charles. Good to have you on with us tonight as well. So we have covered several different topics. We've had several different presenters. And so we've spoken about resiliency, coping, disaster, trauma, addiction and recovery to a little bit. We're going to go deep dive into that some more, because I really believe that once we figure out how we can not only motivate ourselves, but secrets of peak mental performance, that especially now that we are seeing many states reopening, we'll be able to bounce back effectively from this pandemic. And so tonight we're going to have an update on the COVID-19 situation and just be able to ask some questions. Then on Thursday evening, Dr. Judith Fisher will be our presenter. So please make sure you're back on Thursday evening. She has a power-packed presentation for us, going to help us to be able to master recovery and dealing with difficult habits to overcome. So please make sure that you do not miss out on that. And of course, tonight I have the pleasure of introducing one of my good friend and mentor, Dr. Baca. But here is the outline. If by chance you are new, this is the outline we use. After I introduce the speaker, he will be able to spend about 45 minutes or so, give or take, and sharing with us the presentation. Again, it may be from an academic perspective, but nonetheless, afterwards, I interview him briefly for about 10, 15 minutes maximum, so that we can break it down for the rest of us. So not only our professionals are benefited, but all of us, like myself, I'm a layperson too, we will be able to get some of that juice and nuggets so that we can apply it to our lives as well. Then we open the floor for question and answers. If you have any questions while the presenter is giving his lecture, please write it down or put it in the chat, so we can get it. But I would rather you write it a little later on, once you hear what's going on, because that's what I do too. Like, this is not, I did not give him a list of questions beforehand. We do everything live because I'm taking notes from their presentations as well. And anything that stands out to me, then I ask them to elaborate in the interview. And then we'll ask the host, we'll ask the presenter if he has any extra closing remarks, and that will be the end of it for this evening. So are you ready? If you are ready, put a 1 in the chat or say yes in the chat. Let me know if you are ready for our presenter tonight. I want to make sure we get everyone fired up and ready to go, because once Dr. Baca starts, we want to make sure we give him a hearty welcome to this webinar series. So a little bit about him. One thing I know for sure, Dr. Baca is indeed a family man. I want to start off with that. He's not only a physician, he's a family physician and a family man as well. He's been practicing in our area in San Juan for the past 30 years. And also, another thing we have in common is he is also a military veteran. And so he served as a major medical doctor in the U.S. Army and is a running. He likes to run, stay healthy himself. He's a father of 2 wonderful, beautiful daughters, both of whom are married and both of whom are also professionals. So he not only takes care of the professional front, he takes care of his home front. And another thing, of course, he serves locally faithfully as a man of God as well, spiritual man. He's our head elder at our church. And so we really appreciate him for all that he does in the community, in the church, but especially on the home front for his family as well. That's a well-rounded man. What do you say? I love that kind of folks, that they are multidimensional. So we really appreciate that. Dr. Baca, welcome to our workshop. The floor is yours. Please take it. Let's see if anyone here is making some comments saying they're ready for you. So Okay, we have Larry says yes, Leonie says yes, Barbara says
How
yes,
do I make
Moya
it?
says yes, Raul says yes. Doc, I think we're all ready for you. So go ahead and you can control the rest of the slides. Again, just click on slides and next, and the floor is yours.
Okay. Good evening. I am honored and delighted to be here, and I am, of course, unworthy of all those praises, but I'll take them nonetheless. I appreciate the pastor very much. He could be my son by his age, but he is actually mature beyond his age, and I appreciate him very much. So I'm proud to be here, and I'm happy to be here. I hope you have a lot of questions. I might not have all the answers, but one thing's for sure, this thing with the COVID-19 virus is something that is has the world upside down. So I am not going to give you any more statistics about how many people are dying, how many people are, deceased in New York or China, but we're going to try to see it in a little different perspective. We have to see this thing as I understand a lot of you are, especially those who are in Indiana, are on the healthcare professional side, and when you are there, then you have to think a little bit outside the box, and you have to take the edge off of the fear that the media puts on this thing. Of course, for them, it's all about ratings, and that's good. They do their part. They they try to put a little they put a little bit of the fear of God in our hearts, and they have been very successful on that. But we, as common folk, we have to look at these things a different way. So this is the famous COVID virus. You're seeing right there. You're staring him right in the face. That is a picture. I believe is. I don't know if it is. This is an artist's rendition or an electronic microscope actual view, but that's pretty close to what it looks like. It's not mean looking. It's actually pretty normal. All these things sticking out of that little sphere are the crown. That's what they call them, the corona virus. They're the crown, and they're made of some specific proteins, glycoproteins actually, and they have any protein in the body. The protein is one of the most abundant substances in the body, and more than anything else, and they have specific activity to do in our bodies. They do stuff for us that they can't imagine, and they have keys to open certain functions in our bodies, and they have a lot of the way we behave. We defend ourselves. You've heard of immune system and all that. That is a protein, and these particular proteins are glycoproteins, and this virus, it's an interesting virus because let's see if I can. Okay, because it got into his mind that they was going to attack us, and when we have an enemy. Then we have to know a lot of things about our enemies. There's a saying that says you have to keep your friends close to you, but keep your enemies closer, because you have to know where are they coming from. Do you need to know what are they made of? What is it that moves them? Why is it that they don't like you? Why is it that they affect you the way they do? Why is it that they want to kill you? This guy wants to kill us, and this little guy. Was born in China, and we go into it in a few minutes. Why was he born in China? Because we have to know as much as we can about this particular foe. Why is he so mean to us? Why is it that certain areas of the world are more affected than others? And does it have any weaknesses? So we go like we're gonna go to work with this guy. His name is COVID-19, and so the principles of war is you get to know your enemy, of course, his strengths, his weaknesses, how does it attack, and where does it come from? Is it ever going to go away? That's something that we don't hear in the news. We are waiting for that date in which everything reopens again, and we're waiting for that date in which the curve flattens so we can all go back to a normal quote unquote life. So what kind of weapons can we use against it? We know the weapons that he uses against us. He basically goes into our bodies, multiplies, reproduces, causes us to have fever, a lot of tissue, a lot of secretions in our lungs, and then now it's been found. We're knowing about it as we go along, because this is a new virus. We don't know too much about it, but what we do know is that it is a virus that is an RNA virus. We have two kinds of virus, not very many types. It's just RNA and DNA viruses. Well, this happens to be an RNA, ribonucleic acid virus. So what does that mean? Well, it means a lot of things. For example, I'm going to give you an example. DNA viruses, they usually live in, now, by the way, all these viruses need a host to live in. And so when they get to a human, that's their host. They live in there. They live out of that host. They reproduce. Eventually, they find a way to either kill you, or you build defenses against them, and then you kind of neutralize their action. But this is an RNA virus. RNA virus is different than DNA. I'm going to start with the DNA because so you can see the difference, and it's a little it's really marked, the difference. For example, DNA viruses are viruses that live with you and they stay with you until you die. For example, the herpes virus. There are several types of herpes virus. One is the STD type of herpes virus, and the other one is the herpes virus that causes canker sores. Okay. So people always say, well, why do I get this canker sore every year? Every year I have this problem in my mouth, and it doesn't matter what I do. I can burn it. I can lick it. I can put the creams that they give you in the news and on the commercials, and it doesn't seem to go away for a little while, but next year it's there again. Or I have a fever and it's there again. Because DNA viruses, they stay with you, they live with you, and they will never leave you. Maybe in the new life they will leave you, but not in this one. You keep it, and you are a partner with it, and it comes out whenever it wants to. Viruses do that; they don't die. These kinds of viruses, they live in you. So that's the characteristics of the DNA virus. Is the gift that keeps on giving. Okay. Now we have the RNA virus. They are characterized because they have certain weight, and I'm not going to go into that because that's a lot of technical mumbo jumbo, but it will be interesting. If you want to research it, you can research the weight of it. But suffice it to say that when you have an RNA virus, it's a heavy virus. Okay, what does that mean? Well, I'm going to give you the example of a light virus. A light virus is like the chickenpox. No, a little bit more lighter than that is the smallpox. Smallpox virus, when you have it in your saliva and you just speak normally, then that virus travels away from you, regardless, about 10 meters. 10 meters is about 30 feet. It's a long distance. Well, that's a light virus, and it goes, and if somebody receives it on the other end and they have the appropriate circumstances, they will get infected, right? Well, not the coronavirus. Coronavirus is a SARS type of virus. SARS is the flu type of virus. and the like those other pandemias, like the SARS pandemia, like the H1N1 pandemia, like the swine flu pandemia. Those are RNA flu kind of virus, SARS virus. They are heavy viruses. So that's an advantage, right there. We know that this virus is not going to travel long. It's going to travel about one at the most 1.5 meters. What is that? That's from 3 to 4, even 5 feet. No more than that. Of course, not if you sneeze on somebody. You sneeze on somebody, that's going to travel quite a bit. But if you're just speaking, with those new techniques they have of a movie and how they put a black background on your side, you can see that as you are speaking, your saliva, your droplets travel. That's the reason why they want you to wear a mask. And so when this thing travels no more than 1.5 meters, which is 4-5 at the most feet. So that's what the social distancing is about. If you keep your distance, if you keep your social distance from your friends or your neighbors or whatever, you really don't have too much to worry about, because this virus will never reach you unless they sneeze on you. And so that is one of the characteristics of this virus. It's a heavy virus. Okay. Now, if you think SARS virus, think flu virus. A flu virus is a virus that we live with. The flu virus, we don't get too upset about the flu virus. Even though the flu virus every year kills more than coronavirus killed this particular year. In the United States, there have been about 26,000 deaths caused by this coronavirus. And in a good flu season in the United States, we have 60,000 people die from SARS flu virus. And so we see that a lot of these things have been a little bit hyped up. But I mean, we know it's a new virus. We don't know how it's going to act. We don't know how fierce it is. But we know we starting to get to know the virus, and we starting to get to know things that we should do. Now, President Trump and the rest of the world leaders and all, Dr. Fauci, they're concentrating in different stuff. They want to be able to reopen the economy. They want to be able to wait for that famous plateau. They call it the plateau. What is plateau? Well, plateau is a mode, is a model. In the models of projection of infection of this virus, you have the racing curve that goes up, and then every day you have first you have 4, then you have 8, then you have 10, then you have 15. That's the curve going upwards. And then when it hits a level where yesterday 16 died or 20 died, today another 20, maybe 19, maybe 6, that's when you reach the plateau, and that's when you want to get that slope down, and that's what they want. That's what they're looking at, right? And of course they want to create a vaccine, but I'm telling you, think like flu. Now, when we have the flu vaccine, is that the end of our troubles for flu? No, because we have a flu season every year, and we have a new, different vaccine every year. So what that means is that there are different strains, different numbers for each year, and that's why we have, that's why Harvard has people over there in China and Korea and all those places where they basically leave. I don't know if you heard this term, cheek to jowl, JOWL. That is that's a lot of people in proximity that live with the animals and with themselves, and that's one of the problems of those areas over there. So we have a lot of people out there testing, see which strain of the virus is coming this year. Then they send information, and those who make the vaccines, they put up a vaccine. This is the one that's coming this year. Put it on. And so this is exactly what's going to happen with the coronavirus. We're going to be able to make a vaccine, which is not going to be good for this strain until we know what is coming next year. And so, psychologically, since we're talking about how we deal with the stress and all that, psychologically, people will be very happy once the vaccine comes out. Yeah, automatically, they're going to feel better, right? Even though a lot of them, maybe even 30% will not want to take the vaccine, just like they do with the flu virus, but they're going to be happy that there's a vaccine out there. They feel safer. So it's a lot of this is mental stress, is a lot of fear instilled in our hearts by the media. But what we don't care about that. We care about what is it that we need to know, be able to survive this, and be able to know what to do. Okay, what's next? Well, you know that soap and water kills the virus. The corona, the little glycoproteins, they are easily killed by soap and water, better than by the antiseptics that we use. So soap and water, wash your hands frequently and as much as you can, even if they get wrinkled. And the ladies, they don't want to get the wrinkled hands. Well, you're going to have wrinkled hands, but you're going to have a healthy life. So you know that when you get your distancing, when you wear your mask, when you wash your hands, then you have a chance to not be affected or not be invaded by this enemy, right? So its strength is that it's a virus, because viruses, they survive. They get into a host, and then I heard somewhere that if you get somebody can contact up to 59,000 people and spread it around. So that's by logarithmic thinking. And so it's strong because it's a virus. There's not an antiviral for that. Um, we'll go on with the theories that some of the medicines that are being talked about later on, but uh, that means that it's a difficult enemy, because just by the fact that it is a virus. Viruses, they adapt, they mutate, they do a lot of stuff that other that we as humans can't do. So that's the strength. Witnesses, well, soap and water, distancing, the fact that once you have it, once you get over it, whatever your disease may be, is strong or weak, or if you go to ICU, survive. Then if you survive all this virus, remember, it doesn't stay with you, it's shed out of your body, and you're ready for the next time. So how does it attack? Where does it come from? We're going to leave the how does it attack for later. How does it come from? Well, we know it comes from an area in China that is called the low selenium belt. Low selenium belt. That's important. Put it in your note. Low selenium belt is the area and we have a little area that's a little bit more. It's still low, but it's in selenium, and that's in the ground. How do we know that? Well, we'll go into that. But Wuhan is the area where this virus jumped from an animal to a human being, and it mutated enough that it became lethal for the human being, right? So that's where it comes from, and we will see why. Is it ever going to go away? I don't think so. I think it's here to stay, just like the flu virus, just like the swine. All of those exist. They're just now controlled. Like they're always afraid of the of other kinds of viruses, but the fact that we now, as we fight it, we find ways to know how to protect ourselves, and then we're more ready for them. So what can we use against it? Well, we already mentioned those. Now we're waiting for the vaccine, and we're waiting for some kind of medicine that will come around, and it will help us to fight this, right? So that is how we should react. So the case of the coronavirus, we said that it was an RNA virus, and we explained the fact that there is RNA and DNA. We already know that. Um, DNA virus stays with you. It's like the herpes virus. We said that, like the cold sores, and that it is a flu type of virus, a SARS type of virus. It's seasonal, and it does not stay with you. Now, the question is, whether do you build immunity to it? Well, we might, we're trying to collect the serum of people that are convalescent. People that are convalescent, they just had the virus. We actually have locally with somebody kind of famous. One of the surgeons got the disease, and he's donating his serum, and they're trying to get to do something with the convalescent serum of people that have been affected, in hopes that we will find something to fight it. But I think that um, because it's seasonal, because like the flu virus, we don't have an immunity to flu virus because of the capacity of the virus to change and mutate. Then it's going to be kind of difficult to say, yeah, I had the coronavirus, I am home free, I will never get it again. And that's not good news, right? Because you probably will if you get exposed to another kind of strain, to another kind of mutation, right? So we now have um, the fact that it doesn't travel too long, the fact that it's destroyed with soap and water, and so we have the measurements that the government usually tell us to follow. So it's good for us to follow instructions. Okay, where does it come from? How does it enter our system? Well, we have a little um, artist rendition of how it does. Now, you know what that you know that I wasn't going to say this, but I'm going to say, you know that even in the Bible, if you go to a book named Leviticus, for those who are not really aware of this, those who are familiar with it, well, you know what I'm talking about. But it is interesting. It is very interesting that if you go to Leviticus 11 and you go to the verse 3, whenever you have time, you know, there's a list of animals that we're not supposed to eat. Now, the number one animal that's mentioned there is the camel. Is the camel. And the very last animal on the flying animals is the bat. In the Bible, the Lord says, do not eat the camel. You know, there's several animals you're not supposed to eat. But it starts with the camel and it ends with the bat. I thought that was very interesting because the problem with the Wuhan area, number one is that it's the low selenium, which is a trace element of the diet, selenium, readily available though in pills, and it's very inexpensive. And that area does not have the protection that selenium gives people, and we're gonna go a little bit more into that. But because of that, and because there in that particular area, there are several markets that their specialty is to distribute and sell these kinds of animals, from bats to rats to cats to dogs to exotic snakes. I mean, you name it, if it's kind of strange, and they have it. Now, the hygiene in those places is not the best. There is fecal material, urine coming down from animal to animal. They are there in their little cages before they're killed. They breathe them, they eat them, they drink it, and the animals themselves. And you walk on those markets on hallways that are filled with blood and all those. That's a little gross, but that's basically why this. And you know, bats, they eat the bats. And this particular virus, which are the SARS virus, they live in this animal. That's their natural habitat, that's their host. They're not supposed to go into human beings. Of course, we're not supposed to eat those animals. But as we breathe into those places, the environment, as we walk in China, if we ever, even though you ever did, one of my friends did make the case to go and visit because it's a famous place, and he ate a piece of chicken he ate in that place, and it was supposedly well cooked. And he had diarrhea and vomiting for 3 days. He was violently sick for 3 days. He said he almost died. But his wife is a nurse practitioner, and she was with him, and she took care of him, and he made it well. But he told me that experience when I told him that I was looking into this particular case of how where it came from and all that. So in the Middle East, they eat camels. And so there's a human coronavirus. It's got a number 229E. And in the Middle East, there is a disease called, you probably heard of it, the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, the MERS, caused by a coronavirus, right? Of course, there is another coronavirus that can even get caught in cattle. And then there is the coronavirus that's called the SARS type of virus, which is, I don't know the name of that little animal in the middle in English, but it's like a little rat, but it's a cute little animal. Anyway, it's like a delicatessen for them over there. And he harbors this SARS virus, the bat, of course. And from there, it passes to the human being. And of course, we have the rat and again, the bat. And there is a COVID type 2 SARS. COVID-1 is the flu kind of virus. Okay, so that is a little gross, but it's illuminating, right? It's illuminating. So how does it enter our bodies? Of course, we want to know. We don't hear this in the news because it's a little technical, and it's usually in the journals of medicine. But you know, when I research this, at the end you're going to have a list of journals that I'm not going to give you the links, but I'm going to give you. You can just Google it, and it's all out there for you to just read it. But one of the primary modes of entry of this virus is through the lungs. Through the lungs, there are certain terminals in the lungs and in the nose that are called ACE2 terminals. ACE2 terminals pair up with ACE2 enzyme, which is an enzyme that works in the angiotensin-renin or renin-angiotensin system of the body, which is found in kidneys, it is found in the lungs, which is found in the heart. And that renin-angiotensin system is known because when it's altered, it causes hypertension. How does it do that? Well, the enzyme that is called the ACE2 enzyme is an enzyme that cleaves the angiotensin 1. Angiotensin 1 is cleaved, and then as it cleaves it, it gives you angiotensin 2. Okay. It just so happens that angiotensin 2 is a highly hypertensive enzyme. This particular length of amino acids, it causes the blood vessels to constrict, right? While angiotensin 1, which is the one that this came from, is vasodilator. So those of you who are in the program for nurse practitioner and all that, you know that we have medicine called ACE inhibitors, which is the lisinopril, the benazepril, the ramipril, all those that end in pril, most of them, they are called ACE inhibitors. Then we have the ARBs, the angiotensin receptor blocker. Those are other, like the omelsartan and all those that end in sartan. Okay, those two medicines, what they do is they go into this and block the cleavage of angiotensin 1. That's why they call inhibitors or blockers. And when they cleave this terminal, then they leave open the terminals of ACE2, which are the receptor of this enzyme. So what happens when that happens? When that happens, you leave open the receptor that is the darling of the coronavirus. You know that little corona thing that's sticking out? That goes and couples with these receptors of ACE2, they call the ACE2 receptors, and that's the mode of entry of the virus into the cell. Once it goes into the cell, the RNA goes to your DNA or to your RNA and reduplicates his sequence, and it starts growing and multiplying, right? So the key for them is to get into your body. Once they then they're home free. All they have to do is live, because virus doesn't have to do anything. It coupled with your RNA, with your DNA, and they reduplicate, and they do it quite rapidly. So the symptoms for the SARS is, of course, fever, which is very unusual, that you don't have any other symptoms. You don't have runny nose, you don't have watery eyes, you don't have any cough initially, but you have fevers of up to 102 or more. Once you have that, then it's for you pertinent to check for the test and test these people. After that, a few days after that, then the respiratory problems come. They start in the cells of the lungs, they start reduplicating, they start producing all this gelatinous secretion that builds into your lungs and doesn't let you breathe. And so that is why it's similar to something that's called the ARDS. Not ARDS, I'm sorry, the respiratory distress syndrome. Yeah, acute ARDS, correct. Yeah, acute respiratory distress syndrome. So when you have an acute, that can come from bacteria, that can come from virus, that can come from anything, sepsis, whatever. And once you have that, then you have to be intubated, because then you need lung support, because you cannot breathe. Your oxygen will drop considerably below 80, and then you are in big trouble. And so that's why all this about respirators, we have enough respirators, we don't have enough respirators, they accuse Trump that he doesn't care about respirators, that he's sitting on the respirator, all this nonsense. But this is how and why all this talk about respirators, because you have to have all this support when you get the COVID disease. That's what COVID-19 disease. So how does it go in? It goes through the ACE2. And so what is then in your mind what we have to do? What we have to do is to make sure that we find ways to block the entry of the COVID-19 virus into that cell. And the way to do it is to occupy those ACE2 terminals. So, that usually in a normal person that is not hypertensive, it's pretty well balanced. The thing is that's why in order of importance, in order of frequency, is those who are attacked the most are the people that have hypertension. Those are the prime targets of the COVID, hypertension. So somebody that's hypertension and that is taking any of this ACE inhibitor medication, if it's within your power, what you want to do is change that medicine to something different. Change it to a calcium channel blocker. Change it to something different that has nothing to do with the terminal ACE2 in the lung, or the ACE1 in the lung, or the ACE. It's not ACE1, it's just ACE. But ACE2 is another terminal. That's the terminal that the COVID virus likes. So that's why when you have, now here in the valley where we live, Rio Grande Valley, Texas, we not only have hypertension, but the number 2 candidate is diabetic patient. The diabetic patient also is a prime target as a second choice for the virus. The third choice for the virus is somebody that is affected in his lungs. Let's say you're a smoker, let's say you have asthma, let's say you have COPD or emphysema. You will be a prime candidate. So if you know anybody like that has those 3 problems, then you might as well keep them indoors. Teach them how to wash their hands, and put on their little masks and all that stuff. And I can think of just at the top of my head a number of people that I know that they need it, and that we know, people that we know that need it. So this is how it enters into your system in a nutshell. I'm giving you here a couple of researchers that there's one here, Zhu et al. He showed how the SARS-CoV-2 enters into the humans, and it's basically comes from the Chinese horseshoe bats, civet cats, pigs, to gain entry into the ACE2 expressing HELA cell. Okay, so then we have Hoffman et al. That it also reported. Now, these are virologists. These people are virologists. We as doctors and as nurse practitioners and nurses, we try to go into the medical journals we're behind. You know, these virologists people, they've been studying COVID or SARS virus since 2004, and they're well ahead of the game. You know, they write indications, their suggestions for what is it that you have to do to protect yourself, build up your immune system to be protected, which I haven't seen in the news yet. But if you are at the other end of my voice, go ahead and take note and spread it around, because this is basically now you found number one way to prevent it in people that have hypertension is make sure that they're not on an ACE inhibitor. Change them, give them something else, but that would help them at least not to be prime targets. Okay, so we have Mr. Zhu and Mr. Hoffman that we can go to. You can Google them; they will come up with all their articles. The funny thing about this is we see that there's the pigs. You know, remember it's a SARS virus. Pigs have SARS, and they usually live in them like a normal. They don't get sick or anything. But the funny thing that I was thinking the other day is that we are blocking the entrance of into the United States of all these Chinese people. We don't have any flights coming in or going out, and so I'm sure that's about to change. But we don't have it. But we have ships that are bringing in loads of pigs for us to eat in the United States. So that is a little funny. I think that they're trying to keep the people from coming, and we bring in the source in humongous amounts of numbers. Okay, now we have again, you know, there's another Mr. Hoffman, and we can read about that, how to block it, and then we're going to that. This is a diagram how the virus enters into the cell. Then you have the little ball that looks like he's got a bad haircut, and then you have your cell. On the part of the bottom is your cell, and then if that virus does not get into your cell, there is no problem. You will not get sick. You will sneeze it out. You'll cough it out. Whatever, you know, it's not going to be into your system. And then we have that. You know how those little coronas or this little spikes point out towards the place of entry. That's the ACE2 receptor. Now we can find to your right hand side, right there, you see a little structure that is an antibody. Per definition, the virus is an antigen, or the protein, the glycoprotein in that little spike is actually the way they call it, the spike. You know, that's actually the official name of that protein, a spike protein that goes into the cell. If you were to have an antibody to block it, then we would not have the problem that we have, right? But we just started with this problem, so I'm sure there's we're a lot to learn from how to fight it. Now we have the inhibition of the virus. Okay, so there's different names that they could do to the proteins, like the clathrin, the Atom-17 protein, and all that stuff. But you can see the membrane is a phospholipid membrane, which is the membrane on your cell. Excuse me. And you have the virus. The virus is looking for a way to come in. But if you have antibodies, or you have something to block these little spikes, then that's blocked, and you will not have the virus going into your cell, right? That's a pretty simplistic way of putting it, but that's pretty much, that made me understand it. You know, my mind is not very sophisticated. So why is it that you will see that there is no zinc in the stores? No zinc. Zinc is a trace element in the system that people just intuitively know, because they heard that it fights the infection with virus. And it is not something that is crazy. It's true, because the angiotensin converting enzyme 2, which what we were talking about before, the ACE2 enzyme, is a zinc enzyme. It's a metalloprotein zinc enzyme. It's a zinc combination with an enzyme that is a metal and a protein, and that in and on itself is part of the the viral immune system. So this is what helps um, fight the entrance of this virus, because this particular enzyme, this particular zinc, the concentration is in this enzyme that is called the angiotensin convertase, or the H2 enzyme, right? And this is located in the surface of this endothelial cell, which is the cell that this particular virus wants to go in, right? And there are several ways that it attaches to it. There's an N way and a C way. All the proteins, especially glycoproteins, which is a number, a thousand or whatever amino acid put together, and they usually have two ways of connection. One is a C and one is an N. You can research more if you want to, but that's pretty much what it is. So there is all this amino, this H2 enzymes are abundant in the lung, as we said before, abundant in the heart, abundant in the kidney, in the proximal tube of the kidney, and they're abundant in the testicle as well. So they use all this to study anything below the belt has nothing to do with what we're going through. Okay, everything has to do with the lung and the heart. So then we have other set of proteins. Excuse me. They're called protease inhibitors. Protease inhibitors are a set of proteins. As I said before, proteins are the most abundant molecules in our body, and some of them I mean, you can spend your life studying these things. And the protease inhibitors, it just happens that they've been studied extensively because they've been studied in the treatment of cancer, in the treatment of many viral illnesses, infections, in the treatment of a lot of bacterial infections, treatment of tuberculosis, treatment of AIDS, treatment, I mean, you name it, and they've been studied because it's a very, it's not funny, but it's an interesting thing that they found in a medicine that they discovered in Japan, and it's called the Camostat. It's called Camostat. This is a protease inhibitor. And this is not, it wasn't discovered, it wasn't made for the coronavirus because it was made a few years back, but it is made for the pain of people with pancreatic diseases. Let's say you have pancreatic cancer, you have pancreatitis, they give you this Camostat substance, and it blocks the pain of the pancreas, which is one of the most severe pains there is. But they found that it actually blocks the entrance of the coronavirus 100%. Can you imagine that? 100%. Now, it's not still in the market in the United States. It's not allowed to be sold as such in the United States. Many people can bring it from Japan, I guess, and use it. But this is more like a treatment to prevent the entrance of the virus, which we already know how it goes in. So these protease inhibitors, this particular, there's these researchers, Bowen Burke inhibitors, because they have studied this a lot, and but this particular substance is a protease inhibitor. Now, as it is known already that protease inhibitors are abundant in nature. And if you cannot get a hold of this Camostat medicine, you can get a hold of a lot of legumes, and we have a lot of protease inhibitors in legumes. For those of you who are like to live a healthy life, we have now. It's called Camostat mesylate. That's the name of the medicine, and it is a protease inhibitor, and it's been shown on laboratory studies. It hasn't been tested in men. It's given to men for the treatment of the pain of pancreatic disease, but it has not been treated in men yet. It's not been tested in men, and it has not. I think it's been tested in animals, but it has been found that it blocks successfully the entrance of the COVID-19 into the cell of the lung, if not totally, in a very high percentage. But it has been approved for pancreatic pain. The drawback is that it's only been approved in Japan. So I put a little note there, call your congressman. You might want to do that and tell them, hey, please call the FDA. Let them bring that Camostat mesylate to us, and we will probably we have another weapon against. There's several weapons. So we now know that continued efforts to block or to find ways to block the entrance of the virus is very difficult to find an antiviral. How many antivirals do you know? We have several antivirals in the market. We have the antiviral for hepatitis C. I'm sorry. We are now hepatitis C can be cured. We have antiviral. It's for cancer. It's called retroviruses, and we have antiviral for flu, called Tamiflu, right? And so they're not very many. They're difficult to make because the elusive nature of the viruses. But now, because let me mention this now that I just remember, it's a known fact that kids are not really that much affected. We have a few kids affected, but the researchers think that it's because kids get regularly and faithfully and religiously their flu vaccine. Now, flu vaccine is very similar. Remember, it's a SARS-CoV, and we have the SARS-CoV-2. So it's not very similar in structure. And and then when you have all these kids vaccinated, that's why they're usually immune. And in adults, people refuse to get their flu vaccine because it makes them sick, because it gives them the flu, because it gives them runny nose. So find all kinds of excuses of elderly people not to put their vaccine. And I think if they would, I think that would be, I mean, it's not a proven fact, but I think that's the reason why kids don't get that much affected, because they have the flu vaccine, and it is pretty similar to the viruses are pretty similar. So this is a study done through a X-ray crystallography, and this is pretty much what the virus looks like. And so they use protease, and it targets, which remember we said the protease inhibitor, they target the coronavirus, and so they are trying to find a compound that binds and inhibits the entrance in mice, right? So, but still, if you can find something, well, that's good. Now, this is what you have you can get your hands on. This is what you can use in order. This is loaded with protease inhibitor. This is beans, potato. You see carrot. You see it's not there, but pineapple is big on protease inhibitors. So you name it, corn. You can use it. That is at your fingertips. You can go to the market and find all these products and eat them, and you'll have one more weapon to fight this coronavirus, right? Because the thing is, remember, we're talking about prevention. Nobody is talking about prevention. You build up. How do you build up? Well, we already have two big guns. We have the zinc, and we have the protease inhibitors. Those two alone are big in the prevention. Now, selenium. What's selenium? Well, selenium is it's got a place, it's important because it's got a place in the table of elements. We got a selenium Se, that's the nomenclature, Se. And you will find that selenium, it also been studied in many ways, from AIDS to cancer, against tuberculosis, and this has been studied bountifully. Now, this I mentioned this because remember, where does it come from? It comes from the belt in China that is called the low selenium belt. It's a very unique thing that most of these infections for viruses come from that area. The SARS comes from that area. We have the in 1925, I think there was a pandemic that came from that area. There was the Spanish flu that actually came from China, but they named it the Spanish flu. And we have also the SARS, we have which is the H1N1. We also have the swine, which is more recent before this. That was in 1998. That was under the lookout of President Obama. The reason why you don't remember this is because there was not one time mentioned in the news that there was a pandemic until President Obama came and made us aware that that was happening. There was no travel restriction. There was nothing, and it killed a bunch of people. But it came from the same area that's called the low selenium belt. Why am I keeping telling you selenium? Selenium is a wonderful. I mean, you can buy it over the counter. You don't even need any prescription, and it's a wonderful medicine. I call it medicine because it's widely spread, and it goes into the zinc metalloprotein system, binds to it, and fights the entrance of the virus into the lung. Okay, that's the bottom line. So there is that's a big gun against or for the prevention of this virus. So let me see if we can make you mind some why I'm so adamant about selenium. Here is China. Okay, this area right here is a humongous country. We don't have any data on selenium here, but this green clear is the selenium deficiency right here. And cyan is important, and then this lean tie is important because there's other diseases that come from that. There are musculoskeletal diseases. People in these parts, they eat a lot of rice. The rice that is produced there has no selenium whatsoever, and so they get all these neuromuscular diseases that are pretty similar to arthritis, pretty similar to rheumatoid arthritis. The Chinese men do not develop well. They underdevelop. Their joints are all out of joint. You know, you see a picture, you say, well, poor guy, what happened? Well, what happened is that he did not have any selenium as he was growing up. And you can see the little star. The little star is just a little to the side of the belt, but that's Wuhan. And this is which is low selenium area, right? Right over here, we have normal selenium, and then we have the low and the very low selenium, right? So this is selenium. This area is known for the fact that there's a lot of mutations. So it's been studied thoroughly, and it is found that that if you have enough selenium in your system, you prevent the entrance of the virus into your body. You prevent the mutation of the virus, and you help to block the activity of the virus. So selenium, which is extremely well distributed in the lung area, it actually goes in the lung and in the heart. It's just on the side. I have several patients that when they cannot tolerate. Now this is not written. It's not studied. This is something that I found in my day-to-day practice. But since I've been reading about selenium for so many years, supposedly prevents cancer of the prostate. It was a huge study that it was inconclusive in the United States, but it is several studies that sort of tend to show that it does prevent cancer of the prostate. So if you're a man and you have a prostate, then it's good for you to take selenium. Not only that, but I have people, my patients that come from the cardiologist. They have arrhythmias, any kind of arrhythmia, especially atrial fibrillation. And when they cannot tolerate the amiodarone, the medication, the heavy guns, that not only they take care of the arrhythmia, but they will make you feel like you're dying, and they will actually give you pulmonary fibrosis, a lot of them. But what are you going to do? You have the atrial fibrillation. They can kill you with the blood to out to your heart or to your brain. So they take them. They feel miserable for the rest of their lives. But you know that selenium takes away atrial fibrillation. I have, this is an anecdotal. Okay, don't quote anybody. It's just I use it. But in every patient that I use it, atrial fibrillation goes away. That is because I know that selenium terminals reside in the heart and in the lung. Okay, so there is a map of the United States and Canada, and if we're going to talk about selenium, and we talk about China, how it's the distribution in China has a lot to do with how they get sick. Well, guess what? Tell me if you can. I mean, I can't hear you, but I'm sure you're going to tell me the hot spots for coronavirus in the United States. Where are they? Well, it started in supposedly in Washington State, right? But Northern California, Washington State, and surrounding areas is a pretty heavy area for COVID-19. Then you come around the Great Lake area, and you have the areas like Detroit, you have the areas like Chicago, you have the areas like, you go a little bit eastern, and then you have the New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and then you go down in Florida. The advantage in Florida is that the COVID does not like humidity or heat. And Florida is humid and it's hot. Okay, so that's what we have going against the virus. That's another thing. We're praying for the summertime. See, above 40% humidity and above 90 degrees, virus cannot survive too well. So, but look at the areas. This area right here is the low selenium area, the little square thingy. That is low selenium area. It's not a coincidence. That is, how do you define that? Well, this is, you have to go to the veterinarian journals. In the veterinarian journals, they tell you how they test animals. They test their meat, the chickens and the goats and the cows, and they test their meat, and they decide, if it's low, if it's high, if it's normal, and in these areas it's pretty low. All of these areas is a low selenium area. So what the crops that you harvest from there, they're low in selenium, and the animals that you kill that are from there that you eat, they are low in selenium. So I don't think it's a coincidence that New York and Washington State and California are one of the hot spots for the problem that we have, right? Now, what is this in the middle? Well, of course, this is Texas. Hallelujah, right? That's normal selenium. And then if you are a meat eater, then you eat a cow from Texas, you'll be good on selenium. And if you have up here in the, I don't know what they call this, the Midwest, I don't know how they call this, but these states over here, they're actually a little higher than normal selenium. And then you have an area in New Mexico and Arizona that is pretty low. Okay, but Texas is normal, praise the Lord. And so we have in this other state that is pretty normal, and the rest is the low. Okay, so how does selenium work? It's a trace element, right? That if you have sufficient amounts, reinforces the immune system, because it goes to the lungs where when it's needed, when it fights the actual entrance of the virus. And it's been studied thoroughly for other stuff, bacterial, tuberculosis, neuromuscular diseases like we were explaining. And it's also showed that selenium deficiency has been a factor on viral infections like HIV, the pandemias, the one in 1998, the one that we're actually experiencing, and the avian flu as well. Okay, so this is something related to the influenza. Okay, so this is to so this is areas that actually are documented are being low in selenium. Now, tell me if that's a coincidence or what. But across Europe, starting from Portugal, Spain, Italy, and also Greece, and then you go to the Middle East as well. So in the Middle East, the Iran, Iraq, those are areas are heavily affected. Plus, they eat their camels, so that is another factor. China, of course, south of Canada, North California, Washington State, and then what we said around the Great Lake area, Chicago, Michigan, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, Florida, and the state of Georgia. Bless his heart, the governor is opening Georgia, which I think is good. And now we have another, so now we have what? We have zinc. We have, well, of course, we have hand washing, distancing, mouth cover, mouth, you cover your face, and we have also zinc. We have also um, the protease inhibitors and the legumes, and et cetera, et cetera. And now we have the dipeptides. Dipeptides is just two little amino acids put together. There's one that is, there's a bunch of them that have been studied, and there's one that comes, the dipeptides that come from a combination of phenylalanine and I think proline. Yeah, proline. And it's called the profen dipeptide. That profen dipeptide blocks the entrance of the ACE into the virus at a certain width of the cell membrane. But that is, and the thing is that they do have those dipeptides that have been studied. They're not really out there yet. They're being studied and used a lot in virology for plants. The virologists know a lot about plants because they study viruses, because most of the viruses that affect plants are RNA viruses. So they have the most data. You want to find out, you can spend the rest of your semester reading this stuff. But if you have a virologist, he will well versed in RNA viruses. Actually, that what they studying is because RNA viruses affect our crops, what we eat in the sea, the weeds, and the seaweeds. I'm sorry, and the coral reefs and all that stuff. That supposedly that's where the life of the sea, depends a lot on that. So they study that a lot, and they found that there are several elements that are loaded with these dipeptides that are actually natural. Okay, so they act as an antibody, and they block the virus from entering the cell, preventing the replication of the virus, which can only happen inside the cell. Okay, there is an abundance of this dipeptide, particular one, in it's called the red algae. Red algae it's something that it washes offshore every year, or at least once a year, in New Zealand, and they actually have gotten into bottles. They have industrially produced it, and you can actually get it on the internet. It's called red algae, and that's loaded with these dipeptides. But there's another one that is more readily available to us, which is the cinnamon. Cinnamon is loaded with these dipeptides, so you can have your tea, you can have your pill. You can actually buy capsules of cinnamon at 500 milligrams, and you can take once a day, and that will be another one of your weapons that you will use for the prevention, right? So I think that these are my recommendations, and actually not only mine, but a lot of the virologists. I left off hydrochloroquine. All right, very controversial, just because it came out of the mouth of President Trump. Hydrochloroquine. It actually is right on that one. If you go to to the journals of virology, they recommend hydrochloroquine. Um, Dr. Fauci doesn't agree with it because he's not studied in the medical world. For that, it's approved for malaria, and it's approved for psoriasis. It's approved at 200 milligrams twice a day. But it's not approved for viruses. It's not approved for viruses because this is a brand new thing that we have. So you're not going to get Fauci to say, yes, take it, because unless he has 10 researchers in front of him that said, I will study thoroughly for 10 years this thing, and he is approved for that, he will never approve it because he is a doctor. So forget about that one. But one of the reasons why he doesn't want it is because it causes arrhythmias, which it does. It's one of the side effects of hydrochloroquine. Hydrochloroquine, I give it a lot of times to my patients with psoriasis. We don't have malaria here, but we have psoriasis, and I give it at 200 milligrams twice a day. The rheumatologists give it at 200 milligrams twice a day, and people do well with hydrochloroquine. And if we that live in the border with Mexico, you can go and buy it without any prescription. It's also used for the treatment of amoeba infection. So you can buy it in Mexico. If Dr. Fauci doesn't want you to take it, you can take it. It's safe to take, except that you may have some arrhythmias. But remember what I told you about arrhythmias with selenium? If you take selenium, you're set. You're protected a little bit against arrhythmias. Of course, that's not in any journal. That's just Dr. Baca's observations that I observed on 30 years of treating my patients. So these are the recommendations. Thorough hand wash with soap and water. Social distancing. Face mask, and gloves. Zinc at 50 milligrams once a day. Selenium at 200 milligrams once a day. What's the dose of selenium? Well, it's between 200 and 435 milligrams a day. If you take more than that, you can have selenium toxicity. So zinc, I don't know if there's any toxicity on zinc, but it may be. So 50 is okay. Selenium 200 milligrams once a day is probably enough to prevent. Legumes and fruits like pineapple and all the pictures that I show you there that you can buy, and they're very inexpensive. Now, there's another one here that I put there because there's a couple of studies that they've been done on treatment of ARDS. Remember, we mentioned that. Acute respiratory distress syndrome, which is when your lungs fail, you have to be intubated, and then you can eat, of course, you have to be sedated. So they found that because they can eat, they have to go into something that's called hyperalimentation. Hyperalimentation is the infusion to one of your large veins. They put a little catheter and they put food through it. The food is going in the way to give you immediate energy, immediate fattening, immediate resistance and strength in your body. They give you a lot of lipids. Okay. Well, they found that as soon as they added omega-6, which I think is the linolenic acid, as soon as they added omega-3, now remember, this is not approved for taking by mouth, but this is a study that I saw. Actually, there's more than one study. There's more than two studies that show that they're dealing with this hyperalimentation in these patients. And as soon as you add omega-6, which is, I think, is linolenic, don't quote me on that, but I think it's omega-6. As soon as you add this hyperalimentation of the body, the lung stabilizes, and they are able to extubate these patients a lot faster than they would not added the fat, which is omega-6. Now I'm adding that in there. Just I don't think it's going to hurt you. It's going to give you good cholesterol because we don't use it to fight the cholesterol, but we use it to increase the HDL, which is the good cholesterol. And so when you increase the HDL, you protect yourself against heart attacks and what we call events, CVAs and so on and so forth. So omega-3 is not going to hurt you. Omega-6 is not going to hurt you. Omega-9 is not going to hurt you. I put there omega-3, 6, and 9 because they usually come together. You're not going to find omega-6 alone in the market. You're going to find omega-3, 6, and 9. But of course, you're after omega-6, which all of them are good for you. And now you can also find omega-3, 5, 6, 7, and 9. And buy it also. There's nothing wrong with that. It will make your good cholesterol go up, and it will help you fight heart attacks and stuff. So that's the deal with omega-3, 6, 9. And cinnamon, of course, because of what we discussed about the peptides. So now we have a little bit more to prevent. Okay, so that's all I have for you today.
All right, awesome, wonderful, man. Wow, that a lot of insightful information
A lot of
there.
information.
Um, of course, we're gonna have an interview now, and folks, let me just read to you a few of the comments. Folks, if you have your questions, please begin to post them in there. Let's make ourselves a little bit bigger on the screen here for a moment. Actually, I think Omar has the control on that side. I'll just make us bigger from the bottom. Let me see this. There we go. Okay, so again, post your questions. We're going to get to them. I have a few that I want to ask Dr. Baca to break down here. But Thelma says this is the best information about COVID-19 I have ever encountered. Melissa says, thanks, I got the references. Yes, Doc, your references, by the way, what he just mentioned, the handouts for those references is listed right below the video here. So you can click on files. It should say number 6, references handout. So please make sure you grab that. Eva says, I appreciate the information. Jeanette says, very informative. Thanks for the golden opportunity. Wonderful. Okay, so keep the questions posted there. I'm going to broadcast them as we go forward. But let me just take a few. I have about maybe 3 or 4 questions here, Doc. So again, thank you very much. Really, it was very good. Melissa says very, very good. So we appreciate the inputs here.
My pleasure.
Now, one of the things I'm big on is, again, preparation, right? I think many of us, including myself in many ways, was also caught off guard in some aspects. But since we've been told that this might be something that will indeed rebound in the fall, so I want to elaborate more on the preparation because we definitely need to prepare. Now, you've mentioned in this some of the keys, but can you bring out some of those elements as far as what are some of the precautions that we can take for this possibly rebounding again in the fall, like some practical things that we can do starting now to boost our immune systems and to get ready if indeed it does come?
Well, as I mentioned before, I don't think we're going to get rid of this infestation, I call it. I think it's going to be there. It's going to be here to stay. It's going to come back once in a while. But I think that if we prepare ourselves, our bodies, if we take all these precautions, we will probably diminish a lot. Now, remember, if I was in charge, I would go to all the nursing homes and I will give everybody zinc and selenium and cinnamon and all that stuff, just because that's probably where we are going to find that is going to reborn this thing, But I am hoping that with all this information and with all the information that is coming out of the CDC and out of the president and all those in charge, we will be more ready this time than we were. We were caught off guard. But if you just do these things that I mentioned, I think you'll be well protected.
Okay, awesome. Well, I think in that respect, I know for personal application there, I definitely have those in my cabinet. I know for sure because I've heard you use selenium successfully, and so I've also been using that prior to this. But interestingly, the cinnamon, I was chuckling on that one because when I make my own oatmeal, I put cinnamon in there all the time. And I've been doing that since the military. I learned it from a lady who used to make oatmeal for us when I was stationed in Puerto Rico, Miss Evelyn. And I used to love her oatmeal so much. She would put cinnamon in there and she would put vanilla. So I started making my oatmeals like that. So I've just been using cinnamon all the time, not because of anything. It's just, to me, it tasted good. So I'm glad at least it has some benefits too.
Well, remember that I did not there's a lot of things that are adjudicated to the use of all of these things. I just gave you what is researched and what is scientific, because you could use cinnamon for, they indicate it for diabetes, for all this stuff. But I think this is one good use that is proven through the physiological aspect of this thing, that it will work.
Okay. What about the vitamin D? I don't know if you put that on there, but can you elaborate on that? Because I'm seeing more and more folks saying, get the sunshine and so forth. But if we do take pills and so forth, like what's I guess the units we should be taking on that?
Well, vitamin D is an interesting thing because it works like more than 400 reactions in our body. It's very interesting that, and of course, all of the vitamins enhance our ability to fight infections. Vitamin is known for its use in osteoporosis, and vitamin D, we're supposed to have, I prescribe up to 50,000 every 2 weeks, 50,000 units, but that requires a prescription. But you can use, you can go from 2,000, 3,000, 5,000. You can find them in the market without any prescription, and that's good enough. You take it once a day. But remember that you have to sunbathe somehow in order for the vitamin D to be activated. If you do not exposed to the sun, you will not get the activity of the vitamin D you need to be protected, or to be protected against osteoporosis, or to build up the bone, or any of that stuff. So
okay, so say that again, make that a little clearer. So you're saying that even when we take it, let's say in the pill form, even with vitamin C and others, we still need the actual sunshine to get some of the activation going?
Correct. If you don't have the sunshine, the violet rays, you don't have to be, sun don't have to be shining. You can have a cloudy day, but the ultraviolet rays are the ones that activate the vitamin D in your skin. Without it, funny thing about that is that here we check every day for vitamin D levels in our patients, especially women when they get, their yearly exams and all that stuff. Okay, that I've only found in most of my practice about 5 people that are actually normal in their vitamin D levels. 5 people. And I can count it with, I know who they are. And I congratulate them and say, well, you're like one of the few that have a good level of vitamin D. Is most common. We have vitamin D deficiency in Iraq and Iran, the Middle East, because they cover themselves, all they uncover is their eyes. So the key for the vitamin D level to go up is sunshine.
Okay. Alrighty, I'm gonna integrate some questions here. I know you mentioned already some of the dosage for selenium, but Barbara's question here, I'm broadcasting it here. It says, how much selenium do men need to take care for the prostate?
Selenium, 200 a day would be, it's actually prevention for cancer. It's not really for the inflammation of the prostate.
Okay.
It's prevention of cancer of the prostate. Now that's 200 micrograms, actually comes in micrograms. But you want something for, which, natural, we're talking about natural stuff. There are medicines that are specific for the hypertrophy of the prostate, which is a completely different problem than the cancer of the prostate. The cancer, you can have no symptom whatsoever and still have a cancer nucleus in your prostate. You don't even know, except that every year men has to get a PSA level to be tested. So once your PSA level starts going up, then you have to go to a urologist, and that's another story. But in order for you to be able to prevent the hypertrophy, which is when you have difficulty going to the restroom, when all that stuff, then zinc is the answer. You take zinc 50 in the morning, 50 in the evening. You pair it up with saw palmetto, and voila, you have a good night's sleep.
Okay, Barbara, hope that was helpful. Next question is from Melissa. I'm not sure about this one, but I think you might have mentioned it. She says, what is the name of the medication that can be purchased across the border from amoebas? Yes? No? Is that
Yes, it's hydrochloroquine. Just
okay?
it's hydrochloroquine.
Okay, hope that was helpful, Melissa. Okay, folks, any other questions, please post them. Nunes family from Raymondville, here's a question coming right up. Says, how long should we wear mask when we are out? Because we are breathing our own carbon, and third usually makes me dizzy.
Well, you know, it's there's a study out there. There's a study about people that have nose surgery. When you have nasal surgery, like they straighten your septum or they fix your nose or whatever. Sometimes they have to put plugs in your nose. When you plug your nose and you only breathe through your mouth, immediately you drop 20 points on your oxygenation. So the fact that you're wearing a mask, it's preventing the oxygen from going into your body. I don't know what percentage. I don't think there's such a study yet. But it is a fact that you diminish your intake of oxygen when you have a mask. Now, remember what I said about the weight of the virus. If you are alone in your truck with your husband, why would you have to wear a mask? And if you are in the store, and if they make you, then wear it. But if you keep your distance from other people, if you keep your distance for a couple of meters, maybe 6, 7 feet, then you'll be pretty safe, and if you are outside in the outdoors, I had this patient that went to the beach, and I think it was him and somebody else, and the other person came across him, and he said, hey, why aren't you wearing your mask? There's only those two people in the whole beach walking, and one of them is pretty conscious about the thing. And so you don't have to. If you are alone in your truck, why would you have to wear a mask?
Okay. Madam Nunes, if that clarifies, it's if not, you can rephrase it or ask again. Also, I think again, check your state, and of course, the CDC has its own guidelines, but each state is kind of reopening at different times. Like now, the governor in our state has already given issues on that as far as we are opening. So I think I've even heard on today, and I think I actually heard him today. Someone asked that question, and he's pretty much saying, well, based on what he's saying right now, you will not be penalized if you are, if you are not wearing it. Because someone said, well, someone else from another county, the judge said that, we have to make sure that we are wearing our mask. Well, he's saying, well, what I'm saying now kind of supersedes what the judge has said. So again, check your state also on that. But here in Texas, we are open, and so I think we are clear on that issue. Next question from Barbara. She says, is there any difference between vitamin D2 and D3?
D3 is supposed to be a more active form of vitamin D. D3.
Okay. All right, Barbara, there you go. By the way, Madam Nunes says, thank you. That was good. Answer the question there. Raul, question from Raul, being broadcasted now. Let's see here. Okay, can you speak a little bit on the linkage between COVID and CVAs? The link between, I don't know what CVAs are, so I'm a layperson on that one. So, but nonetheless, can you make the link? What's the link between those two?
CVA, as in, I also, there's a lot of.
What's that acronym, Raul? Can you clarify the acronym CVAs?
It's a cerebral vascular accident.
Okay, Raul, if you're on, please clarify the CVA there going forward. Again, I would, or strokes.
Yeah, strokes. Okay. Yeah, CVA, cerebrovascular. It's not. There's no. He's saying selenium, right? That's what he's saying.
No, no, COVID, because actually he
Oh, the
said
COVID. Okay, yeah,
there's a report that
yeah, yeah,
saying
yeah,
that pretty much
yeah. There
COVID
is a
found in strokes.
brand new information as they are treating these patients that that more organs are being affected now. I'm sure it's like a total organ system failure. They're having a lot of coagulopathies going into your brain, into your heart, and into your kidneys as they are starting to see more severe cases of this COVID. So there is a relationship, but once you are in the hospital, once you really are out there, really intubated and in intensive care unit, that's the level that they're talking about. That's probably one of the last stages of this disease.
Okay, we have an airborne question here from Del Rose. Let's post this right here for others to be able to read. It says, so we don't have to worry about the germ floating around in the air. That's the question that I have concerning where and how we should wear the mask. Any feedback on that? Is it in the air?
No, it's in the air, but it's only until it gets to a host, right? But
Yeah.
it only travels so far because it's a very heavy virus. It's not going to be floating around. That's one of the characteristics that save us, so to speak, because it's heavy and it falls almost immediately after you or whoever has it expels it with the saliva droplets. So it goes really down fast, no more than a meter and a half.
Okay. By the way, Raul says thanks so for that answer. That was sufficient. We have time for about two, maybe three more. So if you want to post another question here, I guess this one is also applying to faith-based communities. Vanessa is asking, what is your take on returning churches, places of worship? Is it safe to do so this weekend?
I think if we follow the guidelines, like in our church, we can very safely separate people 2 or 3 places, 2 or 3 pews, and it should not be a problem. It's optional to wear a mask or not, but I think it's going to be pretty safe if we keep, you know, the hugging and all that stuff is going to be probably out of the question. But I think it could be done. It could be done if we follow certain guidelines. Yes.
Already. And then again, depending on where you are, there's some people from different states and some folks, someone from even Canada. So you want to again make sure that you check with your local ordinances wherever you are, because different places are opening at different times. So even, for example, the governor also gave guidelines opening businesses, but there is also a process. For example, it's a 25% occupancy, and still you have to practice social distancing. So in addition to the local ordinances, you want to also make sure that you are observing still some of the recommendations from the CDC as you go along there. The point is, as we've been sharing with Dr. Barbosa and others, no matter what you tell people, people have a mind of their own. So some people are still operating on fear. Some people are not comfortable. So those who are up to it, then you do what you need to do. But again, don't shame others who don't feel comfortable or safe in those environments if they don't want to. So I believe personally, my take is that every entity is going to be a process of phasing in gathering. There are many people who are just simply not going to gather, but even those, for example, they talk about especially those 65 and older, to really minimize or have worship times just for different classes of people in that respect. So our conference today had a town hall and they give some guidelines on that. So even though it may be permissible, there's still guidelines on that. So we have to be careful on that as well. So for those who want to, you are free, but those who don't want to, then again, make sure that let's be balanced and respect everyone else's opinions.
And
Uh,
again, for what we just talked about, if we have somebody in church that has high blood pressure, that is on these kind of medications like lisinopril, ramipril, benzapril, and all those that end with pril, or losartan or melsartan, or those with Enbutran, they might want to stay home for a while, because they are the target for this virus. And of course,
Mm.
we have somebody with this pretty poorly controlled diabetic, or we in the valley, we have the combination of all of this. So if we know, if somebody knows that they have those problems, that it's probably advisable for them to wait a little while.
There you go. Nice and balanced. One more. What about NAC? Is it good? How does that help in prevention? NAC, can't pronounce it personally myself. So something acetylcysteine. NAC is that I have it in my stuff down here as well. I think you can order it on Amazon, and your local Sprouts or something like that should have it. Someone is asking, where do you find it, Melissa? It should be at most of the vitamin shops. But Doc, anything on that?
I'm
Or
not.
you can pronounce it, please pronounce it for me. Again, I'm a layperson here with you on this part, but it's NAC, stands for N-acetyl L-cysteine. The
Oh,
C
I
is for
see. I
cysteine.
see. What is not pertinent to the particular way that the virus affects or enters in the body, which is what we're talking about. But anything like that fortifies your immune system. Yeah, of course, there's a long list. Vitamin E, supposedly you supposed to take it with selenium. Vitamin E, of course, vitamin E you can't take above 800. Actually, not above 400. Vitamin E you have to take. There's a study that says that you take vitamin E above 400, like 800 milligrams. Then people that did that, they were prone to get cancer of the lung more than those who did not, and those who took only 400. So vitamin E not exceed, and vitamin E do not exceed 20,000. All those vitamins, of course, the God did not make us with separate, vitamin D. Everything works for one purpose, and uh, the more you feed your defense mechanism, the better off you will be, and that's one of the things that can help. And not specific for the virus, but it will help you overall. Yes.
Okay, I think that's it. We've been on here for a good minute. I know the questions are coming. So if you have any more, you can email us. So let me just wrap up here, and then we'll have Doc make any other closing remarks or suggestions. Uh-huh. So let's see here. Alrighty, folks. So again, we want to thank you for attending tonight's presentation on the updates with COVID-19 on our live Q&A. We want to thank Dr. Baca for taking time out of his schedule to grace us tonight. And I hope everyone learned something and we can apply it to different areas of our lives. Let's see. So again, please share this link, invite others to attend. Though it's an academic in nature, as we have this discussion, these are where we can just ask the regular lay questions. So I'm learning by osmosis. So I'm privileged to to be a host. Nonetheless, strategicsecrets.com/weekly webinar. This was presentation number 6. On Thursday, we're going to be having Dr. Judy Fisher. She's a licensed professional psychologist and also a chair at the university in Michigan. Well, not the University of Michigan, a university in Michigan called Andrews University. She will be with us, and she will be talking now. Thursday's topic is gonna be on depression and suicide ideation. So please, if you want to be here on Thursday to learn about depression, how to deal with it, but also on the professional level on suicide ideation, she will be covering that topic on Thursday night. Then next week will be our last presentation on Monday and Thursday. So we have 3 more to go. Thursday is 1, and then Monday and next Thursday, the last 2. So do stay with us until the very end. I want to thank you again for taking time out. All of you who came on tonight, you made it very special. So again, all the comments, we had a good discussion, good dialogue tonight. But do share the link. If it was good information, others I'm sure can benefit from it as well. The handouts for the references are below. Again, I just shared them. Let me do this. Okay, they're being shared right now. So if you do want those references, please go ahead and click below so you can download it and you can check those out later on. Okay, Doc, any closing remarks?
Yes. Remember that the media is out there to scare you because that's ratings, right? They want ratings, and they think that by scaring the public, they will probably you'll be stuck and glued to the TV or to the internet or whatever, you know. But that's not the reality that should live in our lives. You know, I can tell you on my personal experience as a Christian man that if you have any kind of fear, any mental distress, anything, all you have to do is just talk to your God and say, look, just like a friend, you know, say, look, I'm afraid. I'm afraid of this thing, but I know that you protect us, and I know that you are on our side, and this is not from you, and you have control of everything. So my last word is this: don't have a fearful heart. It will it will diminish your defenses automatically. While if you are uplifted, if you are positive, if you are connected with your spiritual end, you will have automatically build up your immune system, because that is a reality that is being studied and that is being put into journals. So may the Lord bless you, and thank you for the opportunity. I was blessed, number one, and privileged to be part of this. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Doc. Again, we are here every Thursday, 7:30 p.m. Please make sure that you put this on your calendar. I do encourage you to share it out. The replay, you should be, if you're registered, you should be reminded automatically. You get the notification, but it goes away after 24 hours. Already. So again, let's just give you a few thank yous here, Doc. We have Martha saying thanks for the information. Thelma is in agreement and harmony with that. Barbara says thank you, Doctor. And Nunes family, again, thank you for the good info. Larry says thank you for the good info. Melissa says good night and thanks again. So we appreciate it, Doc. Thank you so much. All right, everyone, have a safe night. Enjoy yourself. Be brave, be bold, learn a lot. Duncan say thank you as well. And we thank you because your time is valuable and you spent it here with us tonight. We had a good attendance also. Alrighty, I'll see you again on Thursday. Remember, invite somebody. We have Dr. Judith Fisher joining us. Take care.
Bye bye.